Descript is a wonderful tool for editors, whether you're editing audio or video. It can be things for podcasts, it can be documentaries, feature films perhaps. I haven't tried it for that, but in theory it all works, right? And specifically with this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to take some content, in this case audio, and essentially ingest it, get a transcription, and more specifically, how to collaborate with somebody else where they're making content edits that reflect on your end that you can then take to the audio editing software and have a much easier time with, right? So this specifically works for me as far as podcasts, okay? Because a lot of times, whether it's, one person doing, a solo show or an interview with 2 people, 3 people, whatever it may be, the shows that I work on ends up being a collaboration where people are making certain content edits to, the whole piece where they're like, let's take out this moment, blah, blah, blah. And, the traditional way obviously is doable. You send someone a transcript, then they mark it up with strike-throughs and comments, whatever it may be, but then you essentially have to translate that. Whereas this makes it a lot more real-time and easier to finesse. So that way I'm not having to cross-check a transcript and make those same edits. They're essentially already made for me. And what I'm doing is really listening and finessing for that, so I can really focus on enhancing what's there. I can work on audio levels, cleaning up any sound, things of that nature, right? So it essentially speeds up the process and allows me to focus on making it better versus, all the minutia. Because, truth be told, in a 1-hour interview, oftentimes I end up having 500 or so audio edit points. And that's a lot of edits, right? And so if just the act of having to make those adds up, and by doing that, it kind of not drains you, right? But at the same time, the more you can eliminate tedious stuff like that and just focus on, as I said, really listening to it and cleaning it up, the better the show will be. So for the purposes of today, I'm gonna ingest an audio piece that it's my speech that I did for the Los Angeles screenwriting competition. So it's about 9.5 minutes, and going to walk you through that, right? I'm not going to show every step of Descript and all of its features, but essentially how to collaborate with someone to make those edits. And I will also not be, going too depth into the post-production side. I'm just going to show you how to ingest it there, and then, that's a whole separate thing. Anyway, let's begin. So here's my workspace. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. In this case, it's going to be an audio project, okay? So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to give it a name. So in this case, the LA Screenwriting Competition Keynote Speech 2023. So that's what we'll call it. Cool. So now here's various options. I can record something. I can ingest something. So in my case, we're going to ingest something. So I'm going to take the audio file and just drag and drop it in here. And by default, the transcription language is English, which is good for me. You can switch it if you need to, and I'm going to hit transcribe. Now, if there were other speakers, right, it would essentially ask you, do you want to make a multi-track sequence? Excuse me. So that way everything's lined up in that way. And if I was doing that, then I would say yes, right? In this case, it's just me as the solo speaker. So, usually if I'm doing a podcast, I'll put the speaker names as host and guest 1, guest 2, whatever it may be. You can put their name too. Again, it's more for your benefit than anything else. And I'll hit done. Now here up top, it's going to tell me how long this is taking, right? So it's going to ingest it all. So right now it's about 55% done. And then it'll start to transcribe it, right? So the longer the piece, the longer it takes to transcribe. Also, it is kind of uploading it to the cloud. So, it will vary based on your internet speed there as well. Voila, we have the transcription done. So here we go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share it with somebody that, will then edit it, right? So here on the top right, I'm going to go ahead and select this, and it allows you to do project access. So unlike with a Google Doc or something like that, you can't just send them the link. You need to add them into this project access, otherwise it will not work. So I'm going to go ahead and add somebody, invite them to the project, and boom, there we have it. Now, sometimes I also like to just email them the link as well once they have project access. That way they can just get to it easier that way as well. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. By the way, I forgot to mention that when you add people to the project, you can give them different permissions. Some people can edit the project directly, others can only comment. So choose whatever is applicable for your needs. So when you invite them to the project, they will receive an email like this. Now, I've literally just sent it to myself, just to a different email. And when they go to open the project, if they've never opened anything before from Descript, they will be asked to sign up for an account. Now, I've tested this multiple times, and so far it seems to work where as long as I have the paid account, then it doesn't matter if they could just use it for free, right? But they still have to sign up for a Descript account. As I test this out longer and longer, we'll see if that changes or is somehow affected. But that is the benefit as of right now is, yes, they do have to sign up, but it is free to them. Otherwise, it would be obviously a pain in the ass if everyone had to pay for an account. So I've already utilized Descript from this account, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the web version, right? And it ends up being like a Google Doc in that way. Very simple for them. So the way it works is pretty much like a Google Doc, right? They can highlight something, comment on it, or they can quite literally delete stuff, right, that they don't want. Now, what I recommend, as soon as you invite somebody or even before you invite somebody, what I like to do is I just like to export out the transcript. So on the top right of Descript, there's an option, and if you go to export, you can do the transcript, and you have various options, and you can just click export, and I'll save it here. That way you have the master transcript as per the original audio. That way, if anything got somehow messed up, not a big deal, right? Now, the good news is too that all this can be undone, right? The idea is that it's going to be making cuts as you go along. However, it's not destructive, right? Just like with any audio or video program, whatever edits you make, whatever cuts you make, you can get them back. So it's not a big deal. But the idea is that they can essentially go through this entire transcript and keep stuff that they want or delete stuff that they don't want. So one of the easiest things and one of the benefits that I utilize Descript for is removing filler words. So, I'll go here and I'll go to find, remove filler words. And you actually have the option to select what filler words you want. So right now there's 8 in total. So there's 5 repeated words, twice that I say so, once that I say well, but no, or uhs. So that's pretty good. But let's just go ahead and select all of them. We'll select remove all, and then let's just make a couple of random edits. So the way it would work, let's say someone wants to cut this chunk out of this show, they would highlight it and just hit delete. Now, in theory, well, not in theory, but in practice, they can also just kind of make it so it's highlighted, and that way they're not cutting it, but they're letting it be known that, hey, this should be cut for you. So that way here in Descript, I see the thing that they would have made, and I can look at that, and it's much more easier to then identify and be like, oh, okay, they want this cut, so I'll do it myself. I'll highlight it and I'll cut it. Boom, right? But essentially, you know, they have those options. They can either just do, you know, let's say I want to cut this this part, boom, and I want to cut this part, boom, right? So we've highlighted those, and you know, again, the second option is they can just straight make the cut if they want to. So let's say we want to cut this, and we want to cut this, right? So all those changes should be reflected on my end, right? Pretty much in real time. So the ones that were directly cut, they're already eliminated. And the ones that were just highlighted, now I can go back and be like, okay, cool, noted, got to take that out, noted, got to take this out, boom, right? So it becomes a much easier collaboration in that respect. And when they say, you know, usually for me, I'll have them email me or text me once they're done with it. And plus we have like this workflow of like, hey, any show edit notes due on such and such date, boom. So I know that, that it's good to essentially go to my next phase, which once this is all done, I take it into the actual editing program. Let me back up though. One quick thing that I forgot to mention. The nice part for them with this, instead of just like marking up like a transcript in addition to the live edits, they can listen along.
Observes the world around her. There's stillness, there's calmness. And this allows...
Right, so they can hear the actual show itself as it's happening and have a frame of reference for any of the portions that they may want to keep or cut. So all that stuff is done, right? Then what ends up happening is I go into Publish on the top right, go to Export, and I'm going to export out the timeline. And here you have several options. You can do Pro Tools, Audition, Reaper, Final Cut, Premiere, DaVinci Resolve. So I'm going to use Audition. And for me, I'm going to include media files in the export. I don't have to since I have them anyway, but it just makes it easier for me. And create track for each file. So if there were multiple audio files, I just imported the one, but if there were multiple ones, it would create a track for each one, right? Like a multi-layer sequence, right? So I'm going to go ahead and export. I'm going to select where it goes. I'm just going to put it in my downloads folder. Doesn't take too long. You know, even if it's a longer episode, it usually gets done fairly quick. So there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the folder. So here we have the actual project session of Audition as well as the audio. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and boom, there it is. So this is what it looks like, and you can see here it has the edits that were made, but the actual audio file retains the full length, right? There was nothing destructive about it. Now, the thing that I don't like, and maybe my Audition knowledge is just insufficient, but what I end up doing is I actually create a new session for my project that I'm actually going to be editing. So I'll just call this tutorial for now. And what I end up doing is I essentially take from here in chunks and take it into the new session. Okay, okay, I forgot. So that is actually, you got to make sure that the sample rate is the same. So in this case, it's 48. So tutorial. Usually I work in 44.1. We'll call this tutorial 2. Okay, then we'll paste it in, right? And another thing that Descript tries to do is tries to level things out. I don't like it, you know. So you can see here it's at -4.8. If I had multiple tracks, they would perhaps be different values. So for me, an easier thing to do when they're all highlighted is just to change the properties back to 0. And then, what I end up doing is listening from start to finish, essentially. And not right now, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go to the actual edit points. But, as far as the actual shows that I do listen to it from start to finish and finesse, as I said, levels. And this episode in particular is a lot easier because it's just me talking. It was a pre-written speech, and so not a lot of hard edits in this. But all the same, the more complicated an interview show goes, especially if people are talking over each other, then the edits can be a little bit harder to do. But essentially, all I'm doing is just finessing these edit points. So in this case, I'm literally just selecting everything beyond the cursor and just kind of crossfading so it's not hard cuts. And essentially, that's what I be doing for the full thing. And as I said, sometimes that's also including audio leveling. Let's say this was too quiet, so I might just create an edit point there, raise that up. Same thing with this, just do it a little bit differently. If I needed to, I can use keyframes, Obviously at this point, you can edit it however you normally edit an audio podcast, but the benefit of utilizing Descript in this way is that the content edits from Descript get transferred over, right, via these edit points, and it just makes it easier to focus on that instead of having to make them yourself. And you go through that and essentially edit the episode, right? For full clarity, when I say that I'm polishing up an episode in Audition, what I'm talking about is that in Descript, with a content edit, it gets it very close overall. However, looking at a transcript is still different than the actual episode itself. Oftentimes, we miss things such as pacing, right? There can be long pauses in between sentences, words, whatever the case may be. And so oftentimes, I'm cleaning up those spaces and creating a better pacing for the overall episode so it's much more listenable and enjoyable. Other times, people can sometimes have stutters, or perhaps they have a thought and then they restart it, and that's missed as part of the content edit. So my role in the cleanup and the polish is to really go and clean that up, right? So overall, the way I work with people is that the content edit is just the main stuff, perhaps taking out questions that drag on too long, don't need to be a part of it, perhaps for legal reasons or things such as that. But overall, it is still my responsibility to make sure that everything flows from start to finish and isn't clunky whatsoever. That's my process. And yeah, I've been utilizing it and it's been very beneficial with the people that I've been working this system with. And so I want to share it with you. Of course, you're welcome to tailor it to however you want. I often say that there is no wrong way to do something. It's as long as it works for you, then great. That's what matters, right? If it accomplishes the goal that you want, then great. So this for me has been the most efficient and effective form at the moment. So that's how I'm utilizing Descript and Adobe Audition to edit podcasts. So I hope this was beneficial. As always, you can ask questions down in the comment section or hit me up on social media at Svitek. And if you have alternative ways of doing this, if you have perhaps better ways of doing this, I certainly would love to learn, and I'm sure other people that have seen this tutorial would appreciate as well. So I love when we share knowledge in that way, and this is my first step to sort of galvanize towards that, at least with this particular topic. Also, just as one final thing, if you appreciate what I do and would love to connect more on a sort of face-to-face level, that's what my Patreon is for, patreon.com/PhilSvitek. So check that out. Lots of great stuff there, and for us to be able to interact more directly. So thank you so much. I appreciate you and hope to see you next time.